Hello, my name is Janari Aman. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and the show is Chronic Ailments and Scientific Nutrition. On our show, we look at natural solutions based on lab analysis and science-based medical testing for the treatment of chronic ailments that give us natural solutions that help the body to heal itself. So we live in a different world than our grandparents. We're exposed to toxins both in our diet and in our environment. And we have to start by fixing the cell, by healing the cell and getting to the cellular level. It's no longer really easy to do a simple detox. So that's why we're going to talk today about the modern way of testing, which is lab testing, and how East meets West in natural healing. So nature's cures. Nature's cures are how we are able to sustain our cellular levels in a way where our body gets the vital nutrients to heal itself. But how do we know that? How do we know what we really need? So we're going to talk about that today and how we can test. But our topic will be the source of hypothyroid, another global epidemic. So I'm going to start by giving you a few simple facts. Just look at the numbers in the United States alone. According to the American Medical Clinical Endocrinologists, which is AACE, 27 million suffer from a thyroid condition at this point. And out of those 27 million, only half have been diagnosed. And therefore, 50% have symptoms and they don't know what's wrong. Some sources say up to 90% of women aged 40 and up have subclinical hypothyroid, but they're symptomatic and they're underdiagnosed. And according to the leading thyroid doctor, we've all heard of Broda Barnes, MD, of the Broda Barnes Institute. Most of us have. She says 90% of American men and women. Wow. Okay, so according to the AACE, thyroid conditions are the #1 endocrine disorder in the United States. And that's as compared to diabetes. Okay, and 80% of thyroid problems are undiagnosed. They're conditions in women, and 80% of those have hypothyroidism, and 80% of those are autoimmune. So we're going to talk about all these things today because it's very important. So the goal of natural medicine, and that is the goal of what we're trying to achieve now, is how we can really naturally give the body what it needs without relying on medications that we have to take over and over again for the rest of our life. We want to prevent collateral damage because we know that inflammation being the cause of many disease just doesn't start in one place in the body. So one disease begets another, and thyroid disease predisposes you to many other degenerative diseases and plays a major role in obesity and diseases associated with weight gain as well. So we talked about weight loss resistance last time, and we talked about prevention of thyroid with diabetes prevention. And today we're really going to focus on hypothyroid and what we can do about it, both in natural supplementation and diet, and what we can do to remove our sources. So older women with subclinical hypothyroidism have a 2 times likelihood of having a blocked aorta, in other words, leading to a heart attack. And according to the National Thyroid Institute, 50% of depression could be caused by an undiagnosed thyroid condition. Now, if we could figure that out, just imagine how many meds people could just naturally eliminate out of their life, which would be wonderful, and they could feel like themselves again. So studies show that autoimmune types of hypothyroid, which is Hashimoto's, can lead to other things like psychosis, seizures, dementia, and mood changes, especially around hormonal cycles. So other hormone problems associated with perimenopause and menopause, including the symptoms that plague so many, are due to thyroid disease, and we can prove this. So could it be my problem? Could it be the problem that you're looking at? Here's some typical symptoms. First, are you cold intolerant? Are you losing your hair? Do you see too much hair in the hairbrush or the bottom of the shower? Weight gain that doesn't respond to exercise, sleep problems, fatigue, hot flashes, cold hands or feet, brain fog, dry skin, infertility, constipation. It doesn't mean that all of these things are hypothyroid, but it certainly could be a possibility. So what's the solution? Well, first of all, simple. Let's get rid of the cause. That's the beauty of testing. We're all bio-individuals, and we need our own set of nutritional supplements and foods that really pertain to what our core condition is. And so really, that depends on who you talk to, right? Your doctor may tell you that your hypothyroid is genetic, and there's nothing you can do about it. And perhaps you may be on medication for the rest of your life. Well, that doesn't sound too fun. You may be, however, at the same time, you may not have to do that. But once we find the core, when we find the core of your solution, and most of the time it's autoimmune, we can fix the problem at the cellular level. Okay? The sad part is that most people still have symptoms after they're taking their thyroid medication, and their doctor now says it's not related to their thyroid. Well, it is. It is probably related to the many things that the thyroid work, and function with. So that's not a lie, but what can we do about it? Okay? Because there is a cause, and when you remove it, the body can heal itself, and that's the goal of natural healing. So the fact is, our system for treating thyroid conditions works. When we get rid of the underlying cause, the body does the healing. So what we need to do is we need to find out how we can do that. So that's why now we have scientific lab testing where we can really get a good picture of you. But first of all, we want to know how it all works, okay? So thyroid is a hormone that affects and works with almost every hormone in the body, but what your body does is it signals through a long signaling system. First, it starts in the hypothalamus, which is it's kind of the CEO of the hormone system, and it makes thyroid producing hormone, which is TRH, and that signals to the pituitary gland to make your TSH. Now, most thyroid tests will test the TSH. And then, they'll gauge on that alone whether you have a thyroid issue, and sometimes that is not an accurate way to diagnose it, because what often happens, especially in autoimmune, is that the hormone receptors are not receiving the message of the hormone. So what we want to do is we want to get those talking to each other again at a cellular level. So what we have to do is we need to remove the blockage of whatever is happening at that cellular receptor site, which is mostly usually a toxin, and that has caused a blockage of receiving that message to make that thyroid hormone, which makes T4, and then your body converts it to T3 for energy, and that now is significant in how you work with your condition. So let's just get a few things figured out. Okay, if you believe the lies, you won't see the truth. A myth. A thyroid replacement hormone such as Synthroid T4 or Levoxyl T4 and others are your only answer. The reason that is a myth is because 80% of the time, thyroid hormone does nothing to relieve your symptoms, let alone fix your condition. You're taking your medication and you're saying, I still don't feel good, what's wrong? So 80 to 90% of hyperthyroid is autoimmune related or Hashimoto's, and will not respond to synthetic thyroid hormones such as Synthroid and other drugs. But most doctors do not check for autoimmune disease, and that's where the problem lies. And that's why we want to look at a complete lab analysis, and maybe even test for reverse T3 right up front, so you know exactly where you're at. So exposing another little lie, your blood work is fine, therefore you're fine. Well, I just gave you a lot of reasons why you might not feel good even when your blood work says you're fine. I want to quote a doctor named Jonathan Wright. He's an MD, and he said, before 1971, it was standard practice to evaluate the patient's thyroid condition based on how they felt. Today, unfortunately, we're treating the labs and not the patient. Now, the problem with that is the labs are not comprehensive. So what we like to do in our office is do a complete comprehensive lab, and we'll tell you all about it in a minute coming up here. Because by the time your blood work shows a positive test in the normal way of testing for a thyroid, you're probably at least been having symptoms for maybe 10 years at the subclinical level. So recall that 50% of the 27 million sufferers go undiagnosed. And other sources say it could be as high as 90% of women. So contrary to what your doctors may believe, your thyroid works in synergy with the adrenal glands, also with the pituitary, the pancreas, and even the liver, because the hormones talk to each other in the body. And when we shut off at one receptor site, we're not getting signals to another. So therefore, we have a whole uniquely holistic approach of wanting to fix the cells so that these hormones are able to talk to each other again. Even poor digestion, it plays a role. Food intolerances, and we're going to talk about some of those coming up here. So the solution, what's the solution? We just said it. Remember to give the body what it needs to heal itself. When we do that, we remove the cause, we remove the source, and we get the toxins out of the way, and the body begins to respond with good nutrition and the right supplements based on what your labs say. So 2 causes that need to be addressed to get well in a thyroid situation is iodine deficiency and cellular inflammation. Both of them need to be addressed in any successful program, but there's varying degrees of both, because iodine deficiency alone is only the cause of about 20% of all thyroid cases. And in some cases, because there's a lot of talk about it, it really is not that there's deficient iodine, but that we're not getting what we need to utilize it. And so sometimes it's selenium that's needed first. So we still have to look at the facts, though. Iodine is the most deficient trace mineral in the world. 1/3 of the planet is deficient in it at this point in time. So according to the National Health and Nutrition Examination surveys from 1974 to 1994, urinary iodine levels have decreased 50% in the United States. So that is a problem. So populations with the lowest iodine levels seem to have the highest incidence of thyroid conditions. And we know this now. We have a lot of studies to show this. But the good news is that other studies have shown that as iodine intake increased, both the thyroid conditions such as goiter and stomach and breast cancer also decreased. And the reason that's good news is that now we know what we can do about them. I mean, there's ways to handle these things. Yet, what we really got to look at is what we've been talking about in this show and how we started this show. And that is that 80% of hypothyroid conditions are due to cellular inflammation, and it's the true underlying cause. And so to deal with that and to not suppress it, but to get it so that the body can really heal from inflammation, is to go to the cell. And why does that cause hypothyroid? Well, once again, it's just the fact that the receptor sites and the cell is just not getting the communication it needs. So I'm going to point to this little picture here. This on the outside here is a cellular membrane, and it's composed of a double lipid layer. And it's very important that this stays healthy because it's a very smart little brain all in its own. And you have billions of these cells in your body that have these little membranes. And everything inside has another double lipid layer that talks and communicates and receives information as to what to do to heal and to utilize the nutrition that comes in and out. Well, when this becomes brittle because it's not getting the right foods, okay, we all of a sudden, and how it becomes brittle, let me just backtrack a little bit, is toxins sit on the outside of this, and then we're not feeding it. We live in a fat-phobic society. We're afraid to eat the really good, healthy, saturated fats. We're afraid to put a little organic butter on our food. We're most of us count the drops of olive oil that we put on salad, and we count calories. And so, unfortunately, we're not feeding the membrane of the cell often in the way we should. And so the cells will grab any kind of fats, including bad fats, to try to repair itself and keep going. And when that happens, it sets up blocks. So these little hormone messengers can't get in. One of them is insulin, but this cellular inflammation is what we're talking about as a core. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, lab analysis is one of the best ways with comprehensive work. So your comprehensive lab work can tell you if your hormone receptor sites are no longer communicating before disease sets in. Your comprehensive lab work can tell us if you have a hormone or autoimmune problem that needs to be addressed. Your lab work can tell us if you have a toxic problem and you have these toxins sitting on your cell, and those are blocking your receptor sites. And here's how we do it, okay? We use a specific kind of lab testing, and it's blood, hair, and urine. And the combination of all these things equals you individually. Say you have a thyroid issue, or you have an autoimmune issue, or you have diabetes. You still look different on a lab test than the patient next to you. And what we want to know is what that is that's causing that and who you are individually. And then on top of that, we use a specific kind of lab testing where there's at least 52 different tests that are used as health markers based on healthy people's scores. Most people, when they get a lab test result, they look at the score, they look at their range, and those ranges are based on sick people that have gone to the doctor and have become part of the average statistics, and they go down. So those scores that are healthy scores, may look quite different than these, because when we look at labs, we tear them apart to the point where white is wonderful, you're doing great. Yellow is, we better look at this. This is a marker for a little deterioration, and that's where some inflammation is setting in, and that's where disease is starting to happen, and that's where your thyroid is, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a thyroid panel from that point of view. Because if we see red, at that point we know we've got to address whatever those are in that complete analysis right away, and we never want to see the blue here. So the beauty of this as well is when we test again, most of the time we see these start to clear up, because this lab, this kind of lab work, it goes into a computer with millions of other healthy people's lab tests, and over time, thousands of these have been analyzed for nutritional supplements, not meds, okay, not medicines and prescriptions, for how to heal. And so we have a lot of good studies, we have a lot of good analysis, and we have a lot of good results coming from that. So we combine that with hair and urine, and this diagram shows where we want to see. We want to see everything in the white, but we don't want to see functional highs and functional lows. And on your normal lab tests that you get from your doctor, these are considered normal. And that's what we want to get past. Because the hair analysis will also show what's especially toxic in your body. It shows metals, it shows the toxins that we don't want to see. Up here we see the bad toxins, the bad metals, those strontiums and those things that are tearing us apart. And down here are the good ones. So here on this test you want to be in the middle. So we look at that very carefully. Okay. When we see the negative toxins, we know it. We know what to give you nutritionally to cleanse. All right. And when we see deficiencies here, we know what to give you to boost those. And selenium is one, and we were talking about that with thyroid. So each hair follicle is connected to blood, and it releases into the hair, and so that gives us a good description of how we can figure that out. So trace amounts of chemicals found in the hair follicle will illustrate exactly the toxins that need to be removed from the body. So those toxins disrupt the hormones, and therefore that's how the issue starts. So a quick summary is that even though your blood work looks normal, you may not be normal because you don't feel well. And feeling well is optimally how we want to look at our health picture. And you might be suffering from an autoimmune type thyroid that won't, thyroid condition that won't show up on a test. You might be hormone resistant, similar to a type 2 diabetes, because of the cell communicating, as we just talked about. And so you really can't determine thyroid function just by TSH levels alone. We need to see more. We need to see more of a individual picture of you to really know how to heal you. So we're going to focus more on autoimmune thyroiditis here. And you can see this is the thyroid gland. It's this kind of butterfly-shaped thing. But when it begins to turn on itself and attack itself, it no longer knows how to function right. And this is an inflammatory condition that begins to tear down your thyroid function. And it's known as autoimmune thyroid. And Time magazine did a real big article on it. And I'm using public media rather than clinical studies just because it's nice to know that it's getting out there in the world and we're becoming more aware of it. So this is the itis part of the word thyroiditis. And it says toxins, diet, and infection can cause inflammation directly or by triggering a gene that sparks your immune system to attack itself and drive chronic inflammation. Okay, well, we live and die at the cellular level, and we know that we are epigenetically unique, and it is where those toxins come in where we can't handle them anymore that turns on those markers for disease. So that's what we want to prevent. So toxins, infections, diets, hormone surges, they become susceptible at the genome level and create the autoimmune level, the cellular inflammation, which causes disease. It disrupts the hypothalamus. We talked about how that happens and how the hypothalamus, pituitary, and thyroid talk to each other and communicate, and then decreases the hormone receptor function. And that in turn decreases the conversion of T4 to T3, because T3 is what we want to get that energy into the cell. Okay, it's that cellular inflammation. So there's 3 problems with it. You can't get nutrients in for cellular energy. You can't get toxins out, which trigger the genes of susceptibility and interferes with cell communication, and it's at the receptor sites on the membrane, which are blunted, and they just can't hear the hormones talking to each other. So here's another little picture of the cell membrane, and you've got all these little messengers trying to communicate. So what we want to do is we want to clean up the diet, we want to get you a healing protocol based on your lab analysis, and we want to get a true cellular detox, get to the cause, get to the root. So another little test that we have to find out if your cells are inflamed, this is a really inexpensive little test that we do in our office, and it's called a meta-oxy test, and it tests urinary malinaldehyde, which is a byproduct of cellular lipid perioxidation. And that's a big long word, but it means these heavy free radical damages that sometimes we have no other way of testing. This is the most accurate way to do it, and we can tell right away if we need to boost your nutritional antioxidants. So it's 50 times more accurate than the blood testing, so we add it. It's a great test to add. So what are those things that cause inflammation? Some of them are just simple grains and sugars that we eat every single day that contribute to tearing down the thyroid, because most of our grains that we eat nowadays are genetically modified. So, we're running into the deli and we're buying a sandwich and, it's on this bread and the bread has been processed. And so all of these, and they turn to sugar pretty fast too, and all of these cause inflammation, on a long-term level, especially if you have a food sensitivity to it. So because GMO foods, genetically modified, cause denatured proteins and sugars which drive inflammation and therefore create hormone resistance and autoimmune thyroiditis. And many of us are gluten sensitive too. So chiefly, most people don't know that grains contain a sugar called amylose, and that's especially known to cause inflammation. We have blood tests and studies to prove that. So the 5 thyroid toxic top things are PCBs and dioxins. You've got to look for that in your food. Pesticides, heavy metals, BPA, plastics, halogens, in fluoride, chlorine, and bromine found in water, bread, and flame retardants. And we're all exposed to this, ladies and gentlemen. So we want to find out what nutrients with our lab analysis that really, really are effective. But what you do on the core level is you do your best to avoid the toxins. You do your best to avoid the bad fats, because these fats here become rancid very easy. And sugars. All of these drive inflammation. This could go on forever. We don't have enough time to completely address this topic today. But just know that with comprehensive lab analysis, we can really get to the core of exactly what nutrition you need, and we can explain it to you better when we have your test results in front of us. We have some natural solution protocols right away that get rid of inflammation for the thyroid on a cellular level. These are some of the things we do. My office is in Centerville and the Medical Center, 712 D Street, and my phone number is 415-847-5502. And I want to give special thanks for the crew of the show today. It's very, very welcoming to be able to present good nutritional information nowadays for cellular healing and for helping the body heal itself. So special thanks to CMCM and the Community Media Center of Marin for the use of these facilities to bring us these shows. I'm Janar Iman, and I wish you good health. Thank you.